Hello and welcome to a tutorial from AKCP. Today we're going to be taking a look at the IO-Digital8 from AKCP. Now before we begin the tutorial, I'd just like to point out that there are two versions of this unit. The first unit has two RJ-45 connectors and the second unit has 8 Phoenix connectors. Now although the units are different, the web interface remains exactly the same for each unit. So with that in mind, let's jump right in and get started. So here we are inside of our web interface of the securityProbe 5e, and let's go ahead and get started. So at the moment we are in our summary page, but let's go ahead and click the Sensors tab. Okay, now you can see that on our board we have our dry contact array, our IO-Digital8, and that's plugged into port 1. So let's go ahead and just click that right now. Okay, so here we are in our sensor settings page for our IO-Digital8. Now before we get too involved in the actual settings of the sensor, I'm just going to point out that this has 8 dry contact points, and you can see that we have one listed at 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, all the way to 1.8. Now by clicking on any one of these tabs, like so, you'll be greeted with the options for that particular sensor. So let's just go back to dry contact array 1.1. Okay, so you'll notice that again this is very familiar to how a lot of the other sensor settings are set out. The first option that we have here is the sensor name, and we can change that from dry contact 1.1 to dry contact test port. And then once we've done that, we can go ahead and we can click the flashing save button at the bottom of the page, and it will now load up, and you can see that it is dry contact test port. Now we have our status, which is at the moment critical, and we have our sensor currently online, and you can click this to take it offline. Below this we have our options for the direction. We can either set this as an input or we can actually set it as an output. Now as an input, which it's actually on at default, we have the description of status when normal and description of status when critical, and you can rename these boxes here to anything that you choose to display. Now if we go ahead and we click the output like this, you'll see that the page refreshes and we now have some different options. The description of the status when high and low remains the same. You can click in these boxes and change the actual description. Below that we have control mode. So this can actually be controlled manually, it can be controlled via notification, or it can be controlled by a time control. And we have our notification controlled here, which you can set to low high, cycle low high low, or cycle high low high. Right now let's just go back to input, and we'll have a look at the other options. We have our normal state, which is closed or open, and you can just click here just to change that. Very easy. The enable the graph option, if I turn this off, you don't get the graph options, and if you have it on, then you do. The sensor's URL, now this is where you can actually type in a website and assign a website to this particular sensor, so that in the actual map, in the summary page, it will actually display the website on the sensor. Below that we have our continuous time for a sensor to be in a new status before accepting the new status, exactly the same as our other sensors. We also have our minimum time between each status, critical, normal and error, and you can manually change these values in each of these boxes. Very easy. Below that we have our calendar options. You can cycle this between on or off, and essentially the same as with our other sensors. You can choose the hours in the day and the days in the week at which you would like this particular sensor to be online. And it's very easy and simple to do. Once you're happy with all your settings, you go right ahead and click save, and the page will refresh, and there we are, it saved all of our changes. And that's it. It's very simple, and it really is a fantastic product.